This video provides an overview of UI policies in ServiceNow Express and demonstrates how to modify and create them. UI policies provide business logic to automate processes in your ServiceNow instance. UI policies run on the client side within the UI, or user interface, before a user submits a form. What can you do with UI policies? You can make a field mandatory, visible, or hidden, or read-only if the UI policy's condition or conditions are met. But what if the conditions are not met? UI policies, by default, work with a reverse if-false logic, meaning that if the conditions are not true, by default they reverse the action. We'll show an example later in the video. Ready to implement a UI policy in your system? First, be sure to review existing UI policies in the base system to see if you can modify or activate an existing policy. Let's look at several ways to access UI policies. You can navigate to System Configuration, Business Logic, UI Policies to access the entire list of UI policies in the system. You can create Form UI policies here using the New button. UI policies that apply to catalog items are listed under Service Catalog, Catalog Policies, Catalog UI Policies. You can create Catalog UI policies here by clicking New. You can also modify or create Form UI policies from the form itself. For our example, we access an incident form and select Configure UI Policies from the context menu. The list of UI policies is automatically filtered to show only those that apply to that table, which in this case is the incident table. Now let's look at modifying a UI policy. Our example UI policy sets specific fields in the incident form to read only when the incident state is closed, so that they cannot be edited. However, the policy is not active by default. Here we can see that only the number and escalation fields are read-only for this closed incident. When we activate this policy, the specified fields in all closed incidents become read-only, like we see here. But we also notice that the Work Notes field disappeared, so we cannot add a work note to a closed incident. But what if we want users to be able to enter work notes after an incident is closed? Notice here at the end of the UI policy actions list, the work notes field visibility is set to false for closed incidents, which explains why it disappeared from our closed incident form. We can select this UI policy action and delete it from the UI policy. We can confirm that the action is deleted by reloading the form. Here we can see that the Work Notes field now displays on closed incidents. Now let's look at creating a new UI policy. For our example, we want to force users to enter close notes on a closed incident when the incident has a high or critical priority. We return to our UI policies list for the incident table and click New. Notice that when using this shortcut, you don't need to select the table controlled by the UI policy. It's selected for you based on the form from which you accessed the UI policies list. Enter a meaningful description of the UI policy's function. Choose whether or not the UI policy is active. You can also modify the order number, which is an arbitrary numerical value that determines the execution sequence of UI policies for that particular form, from the lowest to the highest number. Now we add the conditions that must be true for this UI policy to run. In this case, the state of the incident must be closed, and the priority must be high or critical. After we save it, we can add the UI policy actions. Notice that we can select true, false, or leave alone for each property. So we set Close Notes to be a visible and mandatory field and submit the form. Remember when we noted earlier that UI policies, by default, work with a reverse if-false logic, meaning that if the conditions are not true, by default they reverse the action. In our example, if the conditions are not true, the Close Notes field will not be visible. We can test the UI policy by changing the state of a critical priority incident to closed, and the mandatory Close Notes field appears. So our new UI policy is working as expected. For more information, please consult our product documentation, videos, or blogs, or ask a question in the ServiceNow Express forums.